A new crisis is emerging in the Middle East. US President Donald Trump is threatening military action against Iran, and Russia has responded with a stark warning. Yes, Russia. This latest escalation by Trump has triggered an international crisis that may end up strengthening the ties between two of America's most formidable adversaries. And if the US isn't cautious, we might be witnessing the path to Iran obtaining nuclear weapons unfold before us. The current tensions can be traced back to a March 30th interview, in which Trump's remarks coincided with continued US airstrikes targeting the Houthis in Yemen. This Iran-backed militant faction has disrupted Red Sea trade routes ever since the Gaza conflict erupted. The Houthis have carried out dozens of drone, missile, and direct naval attacks against cargo ships in the Red Sea, seizing at least 3, sinking 2 others, and killing 4 crew members. Under Trump's leadership, the US has retaliated with an extensive bombing campaign against Houthi positions in Yemen, which has resulted in at least 61 deaths since operations began on March 15th. So, Trump's interview took place at a moment when tensions between the US and Iran were already at a boiling point, and his words only exacerbated the situation. When questioned about whether negotiations were ongoing between US and Iranian officials, Trump remained tight-lipped. What is known, however, is that he has sent a letter to Iran urging direct talks to discuss its expanding nuclear ambitions. The US does not want Iran to develop nuclear weapons, as it would embolden Tehran's support for factions like the Houthis and increase Iran's threat level in the Middle East. Iran, conversely, sees nuclear capabilities as a means to bolster its regional power and deter potential threats, including the US. Trump is pushing for a deal. But if diplomacy fails, if they refuse to negotiate, there will be bombing, Trump warned during a phone interview with NBC News. Bombing the likes of which they have never seen before. There's also the possibility that if they don't agree to a deal, I will impose secondary tariffs on them, just like I did 4 years ago. Trump's two-pronged threat has sent shockwaves across the globe. The secondary tariffs, while aggressive, would be the more restrained approach. Rather than directly targeting Iran, the US would levy tariffs against any country conducting business with Tehran. These tariffs would likely range from 25% to 50% on goods exported to the US by any nation purchasing Iranian oil. More alarming, however, is the threat of airstrikes. And many believe Trump is not bluffing. The US is already striking Houthi targets in Yemen, and it recently announced that the USS Carl Vinson is on its way to the Middle East to join the USS Harry S. Truman in ongoing operations. In addition, the US has deployed at least 7 B-2A Spirit stealth bombers to its base on Diego Garcia, a strategic location within striking range of Iran. The military buildup suggests Trump is serious about his threats. He is positioning powerful American forces in key regions, which would enable rapid strikes against Iran within days of an official order. The message is clear. Iran must negotiate, or the US will escalate to what can only be described as an outright war. And that conflict may be closer than expected. Iran has already issued its response. President Masoud Pezeshkian made it clear, "We are open to discussions, but past betrayals have made negotiations difficult for us." In other words, Iran is refusing direct engagement with the US due to a lack of trust, although it is open to indirect diplomatic channels instead of face-to-face talks with Trump. Trump's ultimatum has also introduced an unexpected player into the mix: Russia. Just 2 days after Trump's threats, Russia issued a warning, cautioning that any US military action against Iran would lead to catastrophic consequences. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov clarified his country's stance, stating, "We hear the threats, we hear the ultimatums. We reject such tactics and strongly condemn them as an attempt by the US to impose its will on Iran." That statement carries a level of irony, given that Russia has itself made both direct and indirect nuclear threats against multiple nations, including Ukraine, Sweden, and the UK, in recent years. Yet, this criticism marks a shift in Russia's approach to the US. According to the Times of Israel, Russia has largely refrained from overt criticism of Trump, with Russian President Vladimir Putin making efforts to restore ties with Washington, a move that has concerned Ukraine and its European allies. However, Russia's firm opposition to Trump's bombing threats signals that Moscow is choosing a side in this developing Middle Eastern conflict, and that side is not the United States. The Kremlin has even offered to mediate talks between the US and Iran, but this proposal is unlikely to sway Trump. He has insisted on direct negotiations, while Iran refuses any direct engagement with the US. The situation is becoming more volatile, with Russia now stepping into an already combustible dispute between Washington and Tehran. But why does Russia care so much? After all, it's already preoccupied with its war in Ukraine. That conflict, which has dragged on for over 3 years, has cost Russia more than 918,000 troops and has significantly weakened its military capabilities. Getting involved in the Iran crisis, as Russia's statements suggest it might, would stretch its forces even thinner. Yet the war in Ukraine reveals the real reason behind Russia's interest. That conflict has strengthened the strategic partnership between Iran and Russia, making their alliance more vital than ever. Since launching its invasion in February 2022, Russia has relied on Iran for crucial military support. The Stimson Center reports that Iran has supplied Russia with approximately 400 ballistic missiles between February 2022 and March 2024. These weapons, with ranges of 186 to 434 miles, have enabled Russia to sustain relentless missile strikes against Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. This level of military cooperation marks a major shift. While Iran and Russia have historically maintained an alliance, Iran was previously hesitant to send ballistic missiles to Russia, fearing retaliation from both the US and European nations. However, that hesitation has vanished. Iran appears to view Russia's war in Ukraine as a turning point in global power dynamics. If Russia emerges victorious, Iran believes it will face fewer Western pressures. So, Iran has increased its military aid, hoping to shift attention away from itself. In return, it expects Russia to back it against US threats. Iran's assistance extends beyond missiles. It has also provided thousands of Shahed drones, which have played a key role in Russia's air assaults. According to Reuters, Russia had launched over 8,060 Iranian drones against Ukraine by September 2024, with that number likely even higher now. Moreover, Russian defense industries are now manufacturing these drones, with Putin reportedly ordering the production of 10,000 Shahed 136 in 2024 alone. Additionally, Iran has supplied Russia with at least 300,000 artillery shells as of March 2024, according to CNN. These numbers have likely grown since, highlighting the extensive military cooperation between the two nations. Iran supports Russia's war effort, and in turn, Russia stands against the US when Iran is threatened. But their partnership isn't solely military, it's also economic. Iran and Russia are both members of BRICS, a global economic alliance that challenges Western influence. With their growing economic and military ties, Russia has a vested interest in protecting Iran from US aggression. If the US attacks Iran, Russia's ability to acquire Iranian weapons and resources will be jeopardized. Putin can't afford that risk, making Trump's threats a direct challenge to Moscow's strategic interests. As the crisis deepens, one thing is clear: the battle lines are being drawn, and the stakes are rising. The question now is whether diplomacy can prevent an all-out war.